Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So today I want to design two characters that I have absolutely no design for. These two characters are a part of a story that I'm hoping to make into a comic in the future. Also, I would like to clarify too that this story also takes place in sort of a universe of other stories. These stories basically have a connected storyline, and there are several other stories that come before this one. I feel like I should mention that before people expect to see something from this relatively soon. Because I hope no one does, because it's gonna take me a while to get through a couple of stories. So the plot is basically about this 15-year-old girl named Jamie. Basically, she starts off as a juvenile delinquent. She ends up being taken into the future, but she's not still on Earth in the future. She actually wakes up on one of Saturn's moons. These moons are colonized by humans, and they can support life. While there, she meets many people who she builds relationships with and grows as a person because, yes, typical storyline, of course. But she also learns the eventual fate of Earth, and with her new friends, she petitions the Saturn colonies to come to the aid of the people of Earth. And obviously, this is the bare minimum of the story, so if it sounds incredibly cliche and basic, that is because it is literally the bare bones plot of the story. There is so much more to this than that. That is just the basic part of it. I promise I have a creative spin to it. Yeah. Also, before I just ended up designing the characters, I actually collected some outfit ideas that I thought would fit the setting, because as you can tell by my short story synopsis that I gave you, this is supposed to be a sci-fi fantasy kind of story, so I wanted to pull from several futuristic aesthetics for the outfits. I feel like the Saturn colonies themselves probably have kind of a Y2K futurism, kind of like ℯ𝓊𝓉 kind of thing going on, but I'm also considering adding some solar punk elements and maybe even some cyberpunk as well, because I imagine there would be different clothing styles. Like, not everyone has the exact same, I guess, aesthetic they go for their clothing. It always gonna be pretty futuristic, obviously, but you get the idea. So I ended up making a Pinterest board, like I said. I looked at some images of high fashion, also tech wear, and even athletic wear, because there are different elements in those clothing that I wanted to pull and use. As for the characters themselves, the main characters that are going to be relevant to this video is obviously Jamie, who is the main character, and then some of her friends, ℯ𝓊𝓉, 𝒮𝑉, and 𝒁𝓁. The characters that are actually being designed in the video, though, are ℯ𝑉 and ℒ𝓃𝒏. Basically, these two characters are parents of some of the other characters. There is a blended family, so I have to explain it, otherwise it's not going to make any sense and you're going to be confused. So basically, ℯ𝓊𝓉 and 𝒮𝑉 are step-siblings. ℯ𝑉 is �𝑉 and his sister Ophelia's mother, and then ℒ𝓃𝒏 is the father of ℯ𝓊𝓉, and ℯ𝓊𝓉 and �𝑉 and Ophelia also have a little brother who is the child of both ℯ𝑉 and ℒ𝓃𝒏. Does that make sense? I might have to put something visually on the screen so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. But I'm hoping that made sense, because honestly, trying to explain that made me feel like I was listing off a Bible genealogy, because, oh my goodness. It makes sense logically, but it's hard to comprehend. So, for ℯ𝑉, I think I found her name somewhere online. I thought it sounded cool. Originally, you can probably see on the drawing that I made the character sheet, I originally spelled her name with a Y. I changed it to an E though, because I didn't realize that was, a thing from Stardust. I didn't want people to be like,
oh, it's that character from Stardust.
I didn't want people to do that, so that's why I changed it. It's basically the same name, it just one letter is changed. Another reason too I changed it is because it has ties to forgive me if I mispronounce this, because I'm probably going to. It has ties to Arthurian literature. Is that how you pronounce that? I know what I'm talking about, but I don't know how to pronounce it. That sounded really interesting because one of her parents probably is a historian. Also, it seems like a high class name, and ℯ𝑉 is high class, which, speaking of, I feel like I need to explain the jobs these characters have as well, because that's important to their character. So she is a politician. I've not decided what role exactly she has in the government yet, but I'll figure it out eventually. Her personality, so she is a very hardworking person. She's kind of a workaholic. She takes her work very seriously. She takes pride in her work. She wants to make the world a better place, pretty much. She's also kind of a completionist, so she will stay up late to finish projects. She's also a very straightforward, to the point person. She doesn't mess around, pretty much. She's very clever and thoughtful as well. She also can be very compassionate at times, when she wants to be. She's also a very bold person and very outspoken. I would say she definitely enjoys things to be organized and orderly. She finds cleaning very therapeutic. She also likes theater and reading. For her design, I decided to design the characters in their work attire. For Elaine, this would have to be relatively fancy and professional looking, since she works in the government. On Pinterest, I ended up finding some skirts and dresses that are kind of cut out on the side and the front, and they had like pants or shorts underneath. I don't know what that's called. I understand fashion, I just don't know all the terminology, so I apologize. But I thought this was looking pretty cool, so I was like, oh, I'll just kind of do something like this but put my own spin on it. So basically the outfit she has is just a white jumpsuit with a yellow dress over top. I also was looking at a lot of the clothes that are more, I guess, sort of futuristic in their elements, and what I was seeing in some of them was some transparent and clear pieces. I think there was one I saw that had like a transparent jacket or something, so I ended up giving her a belt that is clear, and I also added this to part of her boots as well, part of the heel. Also, as far as a hairstyle for her, I was kind of having a hard time. She has curly hair, so I kind of wanted to put it in some kind of updo because, I don't know, to be fancy. I wasn't really sure what to do originally when I was first designing this, so I ended up giving her some kind of curly hair bun that has a bunch of little curls like sticking out of it. And I don't think this is a bad hairstyle or anything, but it just did not look right whenever I ended up drawing it on her. So that ended up being something I changed later. In fact, these drawings that I actually do near the beginning are kind of older because I started this video a while back, but we'll get more into that later. So I ended up actually redesigning some things more recently. Most of the design is basically the same. One of the things I did change was her hair. I gave her a hairstyle that is basically just a big braid with two little tiny braids coming off on the side that basically connect into the big braid. I don't know, I think it looks better on her character. Also, I was able to actually draw it. You know, maybe that's just a skill issue, but I don't know, I like how it looks better, so yeah. Another thing I changed too about her was I made her sleeves more flowy. I just felt like this looked fancier and, I don't know, more ethereal and pretty looking. It also just kind of added some balance too because of the flowiness of the skirt. I thought that it just made sense to have the sleeves also be flowy. I also gave her freckles. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing because randomly one day I was like, what if she had freckles? And I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I'm gonna give her freckles. That'll be so adorable. So I gave her freckles, which she does not have in the original drawing that you're gonna be looking at right now. I ended up adding it later at some point, a different drawing. But the drawings you're looking at right now, she does not have the freckles or some of those extra elements that I said I added. I also ended up giving her the silver sash thing that you see her wearing. It didn't fit in with the rest of the outfit. It also just kind of felt like it was clashing. I didn't like it, so I got rid of it. Some of the things that I definitely struggled with when I was drawing, and I can look back and see, I kind of had a hard time drawing her to look the right age. Both the character sheet drawings of 𝒯𝒽𝒾𝓃 and Elaine both look kind of younger. I think maybe it's something about how I drew the face. I think I drew their faces kind of condensed and made their eyes really big, and I think that's why they looked younger. Which, honestly, drawing old people in general is harder. And they're not like old. Well, these characters are like 40 something. But you get my point. She looks really young, and even in the final illustration that I did, she also looks pretty young, so... But, yeah. Also, I learned through doing this that I'm really not good at side profiles. It's something I think I'm gonna have to work on because I had to pull up a lot of references, which pulling up references automatically doesn't mean you're bad at something, but even with the references, I can tell there are issues with the way that I drew the side profiles for both of the characters, so I'm gonna have to work on that personally. There's also just other proportional issues that I noticed. I think the ears are a good example. I think her ears were just a little bit too high up, and also, I don't know, they looked kind of, I don't know, they just looked out of proportion with the rest of her face. Overall, I do like the design I came up with her originally. I think it was pretty good. It just needs some tweakings to become a stronger design, which I eventually did do anyways, so yeah. Okay, so the next character we're gonna do is 𝒯𝓃. The name he has comes from a Georgian poem, which one of the English names, but anyways, is The Knight in the Panther's Skin. Part of the reason I gave him this name, I I was thinking of making him be Georgian. Hi, so future editing Sayla here. I don't know why I was like, I'm thinking about making him Georgian. He is Georgian, bro. I don't know why I was like, maybe. I don't know, there's just a lot of that in this video, and I'm like, what the heck? Girl, what are you doing? Anyways, I'm so sorry that I didn't articulate that correctly, so I'm going to tell you it now. He is Georgian. I gave him the name ℒ𝓊𝓉 because it's culturally significant, so I thought it would be a good idea. There you go. That is why he's named that. I don't know why it was so difficult for me to explain that. Also, I'm gonna give you more lore for the story because I have to explain some things about his design. So basically, in the story, ℒ𝓊𝓉 is a part of a group of people who are from an alternate dimension where the Earth is significantly colder than usual. I haven't decided why the Earth is more frozen than it normally is. I don't know if it was frozen from the beginning or if it some kind of oh my goodness, I can't pronounce things. Some sort of cataclysmic event has caused it. The reason I'm explaining this is because you're gonna notice at some point in the speed paint, I made ℒ𝓉𝓉's fingers and nose black, also his ears too. This is basically an adaptation that I gave the people from the frozen Earth. It basically is to keep their appendages from, you know, getting frostbite and like, falling off. In fact, like the idea actually came from frostbite because whenever you get frostbite, your appendages get really dark and then they fall off. But in this case, the appendages do not fall off. I know it may not be super logical, but I don't care. Basically, his job is he is a scientist. I made him be a physics and engineering scientist. I imagine he has other interests in other areas of science too. I think he seems like a person who has a wide net of interests. Those are just the ones he specifically chose to lock in on, I guess. So his personality, he's relatively easygoing. He's also pretty creative and inventive. And he also has a really strong curiosity. He is a relatively peaceful and quiet person though. Unless you mention something that interests him, then he suddenly becomes a yapper. He's also pretty spontaneous, he's resourceful and diligent. He loves a challenge. He's very quirky and he's a very individualistic person. He doesn't like being told what to do. He's also a relatively stoic person, so he struggles to express a lot of negative feelings, and this results in some passive-aggressive tendencies. Also, I wrote down in the script, bro has 12 unfinished projects sitting around that he bounces between. He's so real for that. Anyways, his interests. He likes tinkering with things. He also likes cooking because he finds it relaxing. He also gets to experiment with cooking because you can do so much with cooking. There's so many different cuisines and things you can try. He also likes researching topics that interest him. And then as far as his design, I don't remember exactly what I looked at in my Pinterest board that inspired the outfits I chose. I think I took a little bits and pieces of different outfits and sort of just combined them into some big amalgamation or something. When I was making his outfit, I think I was mainly thinking about the practicality since he is a scientist, but also I was thinking about trying to distribute the colors in a way that looked nice as well. Also, you'll see in the front facing view of his face that I drew. I also drew this little eyepiece thing. I was thinking this might be something he uses to analyze and scan things for him. That would probably be useful for his job. Since he does do engineering, I imagine he probably builds some things. So that would be useful to have something to get the measurements on something. I promise I know words. I'm just not explaining it well. And then as far as what I struggled with this drawing, like I mentioned with Ethane, he looks a little bit too young. And I think if I elongated the face more and made his eyes not as big, it would look younger. But otherwise, I don't really have a lot of complaints about his design originally. I think the original design is actually pretty strong. I think his design's actually the stronger one in comparison to the original design I had for Ethane. However, the one thing I debated about was his little braids. I'm not sure whether I like them or not, and I'll mention this later in the video, but yeah. Okay, so for the final illustration, I decided to be extra ambitious. Yeah, it was definitely a struggle. I wanted to draw them basically, you know, as a couple next to each other. I didn't really execute it very well though. I definitely struggled with the proportions and, you know, making it look like the characters were interacting in a way that looked natural. It did not look natural at all. It was pretty stiff and awkward looking, honestly. I think at the time I thought it was okay when I first made it. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video that some of the drawings that I'm showing you at the beginning are old. Yeah, so I drew this like 6 or 7 months ago and it looks a little bit strange to me now. Yeah, I think even when I first made it, I thought it was a little bit crappy, but now I'm just like, no, what is this? Which, I know I sound like such a hater, but listen, okay? Like I said before, the proportions just do not feel right, and it just looks weird. I think part of it is just that it wasn't the best drawing, but also, I think it's also just the time gap too. Which, maybe that doesn't seem like a very large time gap to some of you, but I mean, it's a large enough time gap for me to hate something that I made. Which, maybe hate is a strong word. Maybe I don't hate it, but it's not my best work. Which I understand it sounds like I'm ragging on my art in this video, but keep in mind this art is kind of old. So my art style has changed a bit, and also just the way I go about drawing isn't quite the same. I've developed and grown, guys. So I decided I had to redeem myself. For the sake of my honor, I had to redraw this final illustration. So now we're gonna get to the actual final illustration. I'm actually pretty proud of this drawing. It's been a while since I've drawn in my normal art style digitally, so I decided to experiment a bit with it. Right from the get-go, I knew I wanted to make the connection between the characters look stronger and more intimate, so I ended up moving them closer together. In the original, they're drawn kind of far apart, and that just looks really awkward. They don't really look like a couple, they just, I don't know, they just look like they're extremely awkward. I don't really know how to describe what even that is. I also ended up making them kind of tilt their heads closer together too, because people tend to tilt their heads close to people that they feel close to. And I was trying to make it look like Eve was almost resting her head on him. I don't know, it doesn't really quite look that way. There's some things that are still kind of off about it, but I think it looks better than the original for sure. For example, just look at the sketches themselves. Look how much better it already looks. Body language is important, guys. Who would have known body language? Wow. Another thing I made sure to do was to try and make them actually look their age, because I think I mentioned earlier there's something about these characters being in their 40s. So I had to make sure to actually give them a little bit of wrinkles. So, you know, that way they actually look middle-aged, which I'm not sure how well I executed it still. I think it looks better than the original drawings I did, but I don't know if, I feel like they might still look a little bit young, especially Eve, which maybe she just has a younger looking face. Also, another thing I did differently, I decided to not draw Trail's bread. I decided not to draw Trail's braids to see if I liked him better without them, which, okay, honestly, I think I like how he looks better without the braids. I don't know, what do you guys think about it? To braid or not to braid? Also, another thing is that recently I've also decided to not use as much sharp edges in my art, specifically the ears. It would look really cool in some drawings, but I think in the vast majority of my drawings, it would just made it look really weird. It just made drawing more difficult, because then if I would draw the ears weird, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to draw this anymore. This looks terrible. I'm gonna quit. Yeah, and I mean, it's not like I don't ever use sharp angles in my art. There is some. It's just the way I implemented it stylistically before that I decided to reverse that, because it was messing with the way I drew proportions. So I was like, no, I'm just gonna be basic and just draw a normal round ear. And honestly, it looks way better. I'm personally just not at a skill level where I can execute something like that, because there are people who can execute the sharp features better. I just personally cannot, so I stopped doing that. I also tried making the line art thicker. In my traditional art, the line art is typically thicker than, I guess, what the original final drawing had, so I decided to go for it. I think I like this approach better because it makes my drawings look less pixely. It also just feels more like my actual art style. The only issue I think I ran into was that I realized I don't really have any intentionality with how I vary the line width in my drawings. So that's something I'm gonna have to work on. I think that's part of the reason I always did it at such a low line width before, because then it would pretty much consistently stay that low line width, so I didn't pay attention to it. And I think that is a weak spot in my art, specifically my digital art, so I think I need to work on that. Some other struggles. Evane's head gave me issues again. I think this is just because it's tilted. I have a hard time drawing heads that are tilted. it ends up messing with the proportions for me. I think maybe if I just drawn her head straight forward and then tilted it, maybe it would have been better that way. But also, I kind of was trying to get the concept down. Also, Trail's body looks kind of strange. I don't really know what it is. I think it's just the angle. I think I didn't draw the angle correctly. There's something going wrong with the torso. I don't really know what exactly it is. I tried to fix it, but I couldn't figure it out. And by the time I really noticed there was issues, it was later into the process of me drawing this, so I was like, oh well. Also, whenever I got to the point of rendering, I was kind of struggling because I don't know how I want to render things, because my way of rendering things has changed, and I guess it's kind of hard to figure out new ways to render stuff, which rendering is not my strong suit anyways. But yeah, I think specifically the hair is one area that I think looks different. I used to have a way that I would render hair before, but I realized it doesn't work with all hair textures or all hairstyles, so that's part of the reason I stopped doing it. And also, I just want to do something more simple with the hair. I definitely like the new approach I took with this hair. I am gonna have to do more experimenting though. I'm probably gonna have to deal with other hair textures and hairstyles and stuff to see if I like it or not. And if I absolutely despise it, I'll just find something else, I guess. Overall, I like the designs that I came up with for these characters. And I think that the final illustration, the actual final illustration, is a great improvement from the original. I'm hoping at some point in the future, you guys are gonna actually see some actual comics with these characters in them. It's gonna take me a while though, guys, okay? I'm still not done developing the story. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this has been inspiring in some way to you.